Welcome back, fellow fighters. Scotty Combat here, and today we're going to look over the PS1 port of Trilogy and the N64 port of Trilogy. This way we can get an idea of what Mortal Kombat Trilogy looks like on PS1 and how really it's going to look like when we get it on Legacy Collection, because it's reported to be pretty similar. However, there is still a chance we can get Mortal Kombat Trilogy as an N64 port as well, and I thought for the sake of comparison, it'll be nice to go ahead and compare them directly. I'll also go over things that are exclusively tied to PS1 and things that are exclusively tied to the N64 port as well. Now, there's people hoping that if we don't see the N64 port, that maybe we can see some of those features in the PS1 port. Honestly, I agree with that. If we don't get the N64 port, the more we can get from that port in the PS1 port, the better. But I have a feeling most likely we'll either just get the N64 port with it at some point, whether that is on the delivery. Now, I want to go ahead and show some of the comparisons here, direct, that is with PS1 and N64, and I am going to try to present this as fair as possible. I do prefer the PS1 version, but there are things that I do like better on the N64 version. Some things just appear smoother on the PS1 port, like the smoke coming out of the MK logo. On the N64 port, it's just like a little more laggy. Where I'm at with Trilogy on N64 right now is expecting it to release on debut, but if we don't get it on debut with how highly requested Trilogy is, I wouldn't be surprised if we got it as DLC at a later point. For example, as far as colors, I think it's more noticeable in the PS1 version that they're more vibrant and they're not so pushed together as far as pixels if you look at the N64 version. Really, there's several things we'll be going over, like soundtrack choices on certain stages. I really don't like the choices they made for the N64, where not only does Trilogy choose better ones in my opinion, but it's more faithful to the UMK3 stages as well. Now, to the casual player, some of these details probably won't matter as much, but there's just so many little different changes, it is interesting to speculate. For example, Rain in the PS1 version has more of a stance similar to Scorpion, and then over on the N64 version, he has a stance more similar to Reptile. There's a lot of little interesting different details like this, but also some big features that are different in each versions. Also, objectively speaking, I will say the PS1 port does have better sound quality, and I just really don't like the choice of soundtracks they choose for stages. I want to show you an example. N64 just doesn't hold up that well with sound quality. Honestly, when I hear the PS1 version, it sounds more similar to the arcade, and with N64, it reminds me more of like a Super Nintendo. I mean, not only are some of these tracks different, the quality is just a world's difference. So this starts with PS1. Sounds good. Then it goes into N64, which sounds like a Super Nintendo. Now the soundtrack for the Graveyard is the same in both versions. We're going to start with N64, and then it'll go into PS1, and you'll notice the sound quality difference. It's N64. PS1. Now, N64 does have some W's underneath its belt with the Star stage. That's a stage that we don't have in the PS1 port unless they decide to include it. However, I don't see them including that unless they were definitive about not putting it in the game. They have no plans of making that a DLC, or if we don't get it on debut, then I would really hope we would get that included in the PS1 version. And honestly, I really do anticipate there just to be an N64 version at some point, if not on debut. Although the quality isn't the best for Trilogy on N64, I still can't help but really admire this stage. This is a very, I know, simple looking stage, but one that's really cool and one that I wouldn't mind having. Well, I shouldn't say one that I wouldn't mind having, I just actually really want it. But again, this one is exclusive to the N64 Trilogy port. I mean, unless they throw it up, that's a high uppercut. Did you see that uppercut? Oh, we gotta see that again. Alright, here we go. I mean, that was ahead of the stars. Now, another flex that the N64 has that the PS1 port doesn't have is the 3v3 combat. Both versions already include 2v2 combat, but 3v3 combat just makes it that much funner. And just to clarify, this isn't like Tag Team from MK9. The characters don't jump in and out. It's you have to take a character out and then the next one comes out. Very similar to Elimination in the very first Mortal Kombat game. Once an opponent's down, then the other one jumps out. And honestly, it's just an added feature to the game. We don't get that in the Trilogy PS1 version. It's just Mortal Kombat 2v2, tournament, and then options. Whereas here we still get all the same options except with 3v3 included, and then you can just go up for options instead. See why a lot of other people want this stage too. This is one that I really enjoyed when I was younger, and then it took a little time to hit me that this wasn't in the PS1 version. I went back to the N64 version, I'm like, oh man, this stage isn't in the PS1 version. This is a really cool one, so if you're new to the game, it may not look like that uppercut's hilarious. It may not look like that big of a deal. So honestly, it makes me wonder if this is something that more of us old school fans really wish we had and we see the difference in, or if this is something that people that are new to the Legacy Collection, or I should say Trilogy, are going to want to have in there as well. So if you've never played Trilogy before, knowing this stage isn't going to be in Trilogy just by looking at it, is this one you'd want to see in there? And again, as far as background details, it's not like there's a crazy amount of differences, but N64 has glowing behind the vent where PS1 is just plain. It's no means a make or break for me, but I've always found it interesting why they make these decisions. Now these may be observed as nitpicks, but Smoke on PS1, as far as his name up in the corner, I think looks a lot better than the N64 version. Obviously that font is applied throughout the whole game. I think Trilogy on PS1 was just the right pick. The sound is definitely a lot cleaner, and the soundtracks themselves were placed a lot more appropriately, so the visuals just look really good on Trilogy. They don't look that bad on N64, but when you do compare them, you can really notice it. Now, as most of you know, the roster is different between PS1 and N64, with PS1 having most characters, most notably the 4 boss characters. There are 2 characters you can play on N64 that are boss characters, but they're not available on the character select screen like they are on PS1. Typically on PS1, if you want to play as male Chameleon, you do have to use an input. Now, it was shared with me that that's no longer going to be required. However, I've yet to see a roster with Chameleon's face on it or how that's going to work yet. As far as I know, when people played Mortal Kombat Trilogy over at EVO, there was no move list. Normally when you pause the game, at least in re-releases of Mortal Kombat, well, mostly the Mugans, but even the HD Arcade Collection that was released in 2011, when you pause the game, it would let you know what buttons to hit to use your special moves. And from my understanding, again, at EVO, no moves are available to show you how to play your characters if you pause the game, but that doesn't mean this is the final cut for it. I would say it's possible, but maybe the people that were playing Trilogy over at EVO were just given a test version of the game and not the finalized version, because again, they are adding features to the game like letting you access secret characters in the push of a button. I don't think a move list would really be that spoiling. If anything, I think it would be beneficial, especially to new people coming to the game. Otherwise, they're going to have to sit there for a while, they're going to have to try to communicate with other people that know the moves, or the obvious answer, they're just going to have to go online and learn how to do it. Which I guess you can say if there's anything classic about this that new people will experience is the feeling that we experienced trying to learn new moves back in the day. Now, of course, they have the advantage of the internet now and having quicker access to those answers, but back then, it was actually kind of fun just play around with the controls until you figure a special move out, and then it's trying to do that input again and going over and over and over and over, like, how did I do that special move? Especially going invisible, because actually that one does require a lot more inputs than most of your special moves. If it is like that, there's going to be moments like the old days where you tell your buddy to hang on, and then they're just going to watch you jump up and down a few times, throw some air punches, do some ducks. You know, I'm seeing it in the positive light as well, because that is kind of funny to think about. And I wanted to mention this sooner and I should have, so if you're still watching, I'm glad you are. For those that don't know, we do have CRT filters that's coming to Trilogy. If you want to experience this game just like it was back in the 90s, or say early 2000s on CRT TVs before flat screens came out, really what these games were optimized and meant to look like, even with the little scan lines, that's actually an option too. You get to experience that true old school feeling, which I give them huge props for doing. If anyone from Digital Eclipse is watching this, you're awesome. Thank you for doing this, because game preservation really does sound like they take it serious. Also, another thing, please keep the soundtrack slowed down. I've already seen comments of people saying they want to see it fixed, but I actually like seeing the character select music slowed down. Again, there's so many little differences between the N64 and PS1 version of Trilogy that I can't wait to play Legacy Collection to actually experience. I'm really glad we're getting the PS1 version of Trilogy for Legacy Collection. Now again, there's so many little details between the games, right? Some things are truly subjective, like I like the sky being darker in the PS1 version, some people like the sky probably being lighter in the N64 version. I do think it's hard to deny that the frames look better in the PS1 version. Growing up, I played both PlayStation 1 and N64 versions of this game. Always been one of my favorite Mortal Kombat titles. Again, and again, I'm being serious, I really would play the Trilogy version for N64 as well. I really like both versions, and I would specifically be playing it for the 3v3 mode. It actually is a lot of fun, and I do hope we get it. For now, if it's just PS1, I'm okay with that, but I do hope we get the N64 version as well. I have the PC version of Trilogy, that is the GOG release, and it is nice, but I actually am glad we're getting the PS1 version, because I know it sounds weird, and this is why I can see why N64 people may prefer it still over the PS1 version. I love the way it is because it's kind of got a grit to it. And with that being said, I know that's got to be a hot take. So just to point out some highlights that are exclusive to N64, there's the Star Bridge stage, there's the female chameleon, there's 3 vs 3. These are things that we don't have in the PS1 version. What I do see happening is N64 coming out shortly after or on debut. So whether you play Legacy Collection or MK1, if you want to play friendlies against me live, definitely jump into the live streams. I'm live here on this channel and on Twitch. Also, like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you want to join the Discord, hit me up down in the comments, and if you want to play against me live, jump in the live streams. And let me know which trilogy you like better. And guys, I will see you live and or in the next video. Much love everyone, and take care.